Hey everyone, just thought I'd get on before the new year and maybe just challenge everybody to make some changes in their life. Um, the new year's coming up and it's a new year, and sometimes the new years are um, hard times to want to make any changes, but it's a good time anytime to make changes. Um, Yeah, so my last video, I talked about choices that we make and how it affects our life. Not only our life, but other people's lives, our kids, our neighbors, our co-workers, or um, things like that. So I thought today I would talk about change and what it looks like, and just ask a few questions, and maybe you can ponder and if there are areas in your life that you want to change in the coming new year, not only to make a difference for yourself, but for others, for your kids, and for yourself, of course. Change is a hard thing to do when we're so used to doing things a certain way. And a lot of it, for those that struggle with addictions, it's even harder because we think we can't change, that we're always going to be addicted to alcohol or drugs or um, whatever it is that you struggle with, that you're never going to change. Um, so we go through our life um, feeling that way. I asked this fella that I grew up with. He was an honor student in school, and I lost track of him for a while. And I had a business with my brother, and one day I'm having lunch or whatever with my family, and I get a phone call, and it's this particular person phoning about a job. He wanted a job. He needed a job. So I got talking to him, and I finally realized who it was. And so I met him on the job site, and we got talking. And I said to him, "Man, I thought you would have been a doctor or a lawyer by now. You were such a smart guy in school." Anyways, he made some choices in his life that weren't the greatest, like most of us do. And he turned to the drugs and the alcohol. And so, anyways, I gave him a job, and he worked for about a month, and then all of a sudden he disappeared, and never heard from him for months and months. And then I got a call from him one day, and I said, "Where have you been?" Oh, he says, "Oh, I've been in jail." And I said, "Oh, jail." And so, anyways, he worked for me for a while again, and then he disappeared. And then I decided to go back to Alberta, and then when I came back in 2007 to where I live now, I would run into him, and he was living on the streets and really didn't have any um, place to live. And so I got talking to him one day. He was on a park bench, and I said to him, "Jim, is this what you wanted for your life?" And he says, "No, Randy, this is all I know." So I said to him, I said, "Jim, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. This is all I know. I don't know how to change. I probably would never change," I said to myself. Everything I dealt with, alcohol was involved. So, anyways, he ended up dying. He drank himself to death, and he got into drugs, and he ended up having liver failure or something. But, so I often wonder, and, as I said in my last video, there are choices that we make, and there's changes that we need to make. And the mind is a powerful thing. You know, when we go through life and make bad decisions and choose to do things, like for instance, I was sharing in my video, when something doesn't work, try something else. So I'll give you an example. People like to isolate themselves. They don't want to be around people. They just want to drink by themselves. Or people who have problems and are having a hard time in life, they isolate themselves. So I often encourage them to try something different. Go be around people. Talk to people. And I guarantee you, as you start talking to those people and interacting with them, you realize that you're not the only one with that problem. Or get involved with a group of other people that are struggling with similar things that you're struggling, like alcoholism or drugs or anxiety or depression, things like that. Or family dysfunction or whatever it is, child abuse, sexual abuse, whatever it is. Make yourself available to talk to these people. That's how we heal. That's how we make changes in our life. Or when something happens in our life and we're so used to going and getting a bottle at the liquor store or whatever and going home and drowning our sorrows, why not try to do something else? It took me a long time to do that. I can remember many times driving to the liquor store and standing in the liquor store for, probably half an hour staring at the bottle, trying to convince myself to get it or not to get it. And then I'd go to another liquor store, or I'd go to a pub and order a round of beer, and the beer would come and I'd get up and I would run. I can remember one time I ran for about 5 miles, and I picked up the phone and called a pastor friend of mine and told him I was struggling. So these are kind of things that I had to learn to change, because the things that I did before when it came to that didn't work. So when you do that, you not only change the way you think, you also change your body chemistry. It changes your whole body chemistry, your neurotransmitter, everything starts to change when you start making those healthy decisions. Because when we fill our bodies full of drugs and alcohol, it just messes up our neurological system. And nothing works right up here. Our body will send signals, or our brain will send signals to how we respond. So if we're used to doing something a certain way, that's the way we're going to do it until we change our body chemistry and our neurotransmitters. And the more we do that, the more we start feeling healthier, physically, spiritually, mentally. So, I was thinking the other day, if we were to ask ourselves a few questions about what would we want to change, or why would we like to change them? How are we going to change them? Or what truths do you need to know to turn away from it? And one of the biggest questions we have to ask is, what stops us from changing? So one, what would you like to change? And why would you like to change it? And how would you like to change it? How would you go about changing some things in your life? And what are some of those things and ways that we feel about ourselves that we'd like to change? Good example, as I shared before, I will never change. We're always going to be this way. How can you change that way of thinking? Or I'm just a loser. Or nobody loves me. How can we honestly change those things? And if we do want to change them, how would we do? How would we go about that? You know, I had to stop and think about those things. The way I was living my life wasn't working, so I had to make some changes. How was I going to go about doing that? And for me, being a recovering alcoholic, I had to first admit that I had a problem and say that problem. It doesn't necessarily have to be drugs or alcohol. It could be you have a problem with anxiety. You get anxious about being around people. You don't like crowds. Or you're scared to go outside your house. Or you're scared of heights. Or whatever it is you're scared of. How can I go about changing that? So first of all, I had to realize what the problem was. And for me, it was alcohol. So that was the first question. What would you like to change? I wanted to change so I wasn't dependent on alcohol and that I could live a healthy, positive life without it. And why would I like to have changed it? Because it was messing up my life, mentally, physically, spiritually. And then I had to find out how I was going to do that. How was I going to make changes? Could I do it on my own? You see, we have to ask these questions. Can I do it on my own? And for me, the answer was no, I couldn't do it on my own. So how do I go about not doing it on my own? First of all, you pick up the phone or you go talk to somebody. You go talk to a counselor, you go talk to a friend. Sometimes when we do these things, they have some ideas that might help us and point us in the right direction. For me, I had to just totally surrender. I had a faith in God, but I totally walked away from it and just did my own thing. So first of all, what I had to do in my life was just say, Lord, help me. I made a mess of my life and I want to change. I don't want to live like this anymore. Because it's leading to a road that's the end result is death for me. And why do I want to change it? Because I was tired of living that way. I was tired of living a defeated life. I was tired of waking up every morning like I did 10 rounds with Sugar Ray Leonard. I just didn't want to live like that anymore. I tried to do it on my own and it just didn't work. So I had to try something different. You know, it's a hard thing to do, but it's an easy thing to do. See, over the years, we were so used to making those decisions. Okay, I had a rough day. I'm just going to go have a few drinks, and before a few turns into more. We didn't wake up one morning and say, I want to be an alcoholic. It's just choices that we made. And before you know it, we're hooked on this stuff. And our life is falling apart. So what do we got to learn to do? We got to learn to find a way to live without it and make those healthy choices and those healthy changes. So picking up the bottle wasn't the answer. So what are you going to do to replace that? How are you going to change your mind to say, okay, Randy, now you can't, the bottle no longer exists. You can't do that. So what am I going to do now? One of the things I did is I picked up the phone, I prayed. I went and talked to my pastor. I went for counseling. See, I always thought that I had to get it together before I came to God for help. God takes us exactly where we are. That song, Just As I Am. He says, come to me. I don't care what state you're in. Come to me and I will help you. So I had to surrender my life. Say, Lord, I'm making a mess. You take over. You take the driver's seat now. Because I'm not doing a very good job. But everybody seems to think that we have to make the changes first before we can come to God. And people, it doesn't work that way. He'll take us in our lowest of lows, like he took me. And even when I was out there doing things I shouldn't have done, and I knew I shouldn't have been doing them, the guilt was so bad and the shame that it almost did me in. He was there, walking right beside me. Did I feel him? No. I thought he was 1,000 miles away, but when I look back in my life, in my drinking days, oh man, I should have been dead a long time ago. The decisions I made, like I shared with you before. Driving when I was drunk and passing out at the wheel, weekend after weekend. Waking up in places where I didn't even know where I was. Carrying on like a lunatic, So now when I look back, he was there. And I always thought, oh man, I'm not worthy. We're not worthy. But he still loves us. He's done everything for us. All we got to do is come to him and surrender and say, okay, Lord, here's my life. Every area of my life I have to do. And sometimes I take it back. And I try to do things on my own. I just keep falling flat in my face. So he took me where I was at and walked with me and loved me unconditionally. His grace and his mercy are just unreal, man. I've shared with you about my doctor I had. He used to say to me, Randy, why are you so hard on yourself? Remember God's grace. And I didn't have a clue what he was talking about. Grace means God's unmerited favor. We don't deserve it, but he gives it to us because he loves us. And for those that had good parents that loved them, you can understand that. But for some of us that didn't, have a hard time understand how somebody could love us unconditionally because we're so broken. And that was me until I had an experience that changed my life forever and I understood God's unconditional love. So I had to ask myself, what stops me from changing? I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for change. I went to a treatment center for a month, but I wasn't ready. 2 weeks later, I was back drinking again. And for some people, they have to hit rock bottom. Some people, it's too late. Some people, it's not. In my case, it wasn't too late. Thank God. So we have to take those changes and make those changes. And it's a hard thing to do, to look in the mirror and look at yourself and say, man, I got to make those changes. And it's hard to say what those changes are. But if you know in your heart what you need to change, you need to speak it. It needs to come out of your mouth. And if one of them is, I am Randy, I'm an alcoholic, or I am Henry, I'm a drug addict, or whatever it is, you need to say it. That's when the victory starts. When you're willing to make those changes. Or, hi, I'm Randy, I struggle with anger. Or I struggle with low self-esteem or self-worth. or I feel unloved. You need to speak those things. And you need to go talk to somebody about those things, how you feel about yourself, in order to make those changes. And it's not going to happen overnight, people. It's a lifelong process, and it's a good thing. It's challenging. It's liberating. It doesn't have to be hard work if you just give it to God and let Him change you. And you try not to do it on your own. As I said, change is a hard thing. But the new year's coming up. And I challenge myself. There's changes in my life I have to do. Lots of changes I have to do, but that's okay. That's what life's all about. And it's exciting. It's a new experience, a new journey that we don't have to dread it, or we don't have to feel bad about it. Because I'm not perfect, you're not perfect. And that's what it's all about. Taking those trials and those tribulations and taking what we learn from it and apply it to our life. And if it's something that we can do to help somebody else out. Share your journey with somebody and things you've learned about yourself, and don't be ashamed, because it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's something to be proud of. If you've gone from a certain place in your life and you're here now where you want to be, or close to where you want to be. So it's a good thing to share those things and be around people. Don't isolate yourself. You know, when you feel a tug in your heart to do something, do it, if it's going to make a difference in your life. And for those that go to church and who are Christians, if you don't go to church, or you don't take time to spend with God, then He's not going to be able to speak to you. You know, when I have a crappy week, I look forward to going to church on Sunday because I need it. I need some encouragement. I need some uplifting. I need to be around my brothers and sisters, because life will eat you up and spit you out if you don't have that fellowship. Or for those that don't go to church, you need to have a good friend or somebody you can talk to. Somebody that you can trust. And for those that are searching for meaning and purpose in their life, you know, don't be afraid to just talk to God. Get to know Him. Just talk to Him like you're talking to one of your best friends. And just watch what He'll do in your life, if you're open to it. Because He'll change you. He'll help you grow into the person that you want to be and that He wants you to be. Because like I said in one of our videos, you know, when God looked around, when He created everything, He said it was good. And He said that we were very good, and He was happy. God doesn't create garbage. We were created in His image, and that's good. You look at all the characteristics of God. He's loving, He's merciful, He's compassionate, He's just. So He gives us all those things that we need. He teaches us how to love ourselves and others. He teaches us how to deal with our emotions, with our anxieties, our doubts and our fears. He teaches us all those things if we're just open to it. So if we say we can never change, and we keep saying that to ourselves, that is never going to change your brain chemistry. It's like when you do a wiring of a house. If one wire isn't hooked up properly, then nothing's going to flow. The electrical flow is not going to flow evenly throughout the house. So things aren't going to work the way they're supposed to work. That's what the mind's like. So instead of saying you're never going to change, you tell yourself you're going to change. And this is what I'm going to do to change. And you keep telling yourself, and just watch what it does. How it totally changes the way you feel about yourself. How it totally changes your mental, your physical, and your spiritual well-being. And then every now and then, if you get back into that mindset, you say, okay, you got to stop and reevaluate your life. Okay, what changes do I need to make? And then you got to go back to what you've learned. Whether it's something you learned in your treatment or with your counselor or whatever it is. Something you learned in the Word of God. And then you go back to that. You go from the negative way of thinking to the positive thing. What's a positive way for me to change? What can I do to make changes in my life that's going to affect me? And if you got children, your children, or your wife, or your husband, or whatever it is. Your brothers, your sisters, whatever. Your neighbors. What can I do to make those changes for myself? And I guarantee if you start doing that, okay, today I'm going to get up. I'm going to put one foot on the floor, then the other one. I'm going to go brush my teeth, put my clothes on. I'm going to go have breakfast. I'm going to say to myself, what is one thing that I got to be thankful today? And think of it. Name one thing that you got to be thankful for. And you say, okay, today I'm going to get out of the house and I'm going to walk up to the corner and back again. And you do that. Then the following day, you walk to the next corner. And you stop. And you take a nice deep breath. And you look around you and you admire God's creation and what He created. And then you go home and you reflect on that. What did I learn today? What did I learn today about myself? What were some of those smells? What was some of the scenery I saw that made me feel good? And you write it down. You keep a journal. Then the following day, you go a little bit further. And there are going to be some days where you're going to get a little bit anxious and you're going to start to maybe have panic attacks or whatever. Just stop. Close your eyes. And just think of something that gives you peace. And pray if you have to. Pray if you say, God, give me the strength to keep going with this. I'm doing good. Thank you, Lord, for helping me. And then you open your eyes, you take a breath, and you look around and you admire the beauty that's around you. And then you go home and you write about your experience. There may be days you say, oh no, I can't do this. I can't do this. You say, no, that's a lie. And you do it anyways. And you watch how your life's going to change, how your body, your mind is going to change. Your thinking, how your thinking changes everything in your life. Everything in your body is going to start flowing like it's supposed to flow. And then you continue to do that. Okay, if there's days you have struggles, what are you going to do about it? You just walk to the corner and back again, as long as you do something. Or if it's that bad, you pick up the phone and you call somebody and you talk to them about it. Talk to them about your fears or your anxieties about what you're doing. and write them down. And then go share them with somebody that you trust and talk it through. Pray about it. Or what are you going to do when you wake up in the morning when you're used to going to the fridge and taking a beer out or pouring a glass of whiskey? What are you going to do differently? Or you come home from work and you had a stressful day. And you get in your car and you're used to going to the bar, or you're used to going to the liquor store. What are you going to do to change that? What are some things that you can do? First, you realize that, no, this is not a good thing that what I'm doing. I need to change it. How am I going to change it? Come up with a plan. I'm going to phone somebody, or I'm going to take a different route home. Something that's not going to trigger all those dirty thinking that you've been doing. Or you could pick up a phone and talk to somebody, talk it through. Or you pray about it. Say, Lord, I need your help. Give me the strength to get from point A to point B, and when I'm at home and I'm safe. As long as you're safe and there's no alcohol in the fridge, get rid of it. Pour it down the sink. Get rid of the bottles. Anything that's going to trigger that. Or what do I do when I have a crappy day? I go get some donuts, or I go and eat potato chips, or I have some candy. Change that. Go get a salad or have some carrots. Something healthy for you. And I guarantee you, the more you do that, the more you're going to see, wow, this is unreal. I actually can make these changes. See, like I shared in my last video, I don't like the word habit forming or habitual. But when we're used to doing things day after day and they're not working, change your mindset. Change the way you think about yourself and a situation that you're dealing with in life, your stresses. What's working for you now isn't working for you. You need to try something healthy. So what does that look like? Write it down. Write down some of the things that you'd like to change and why you'd like to change and how you're going to change it, like I just shared with you. And some of the truths that you need to turn to when you get in those places in your life. When you start beating yourself up and say that you're useless and you're no good, you're not worthy. Those are lies. Those aren't truths. That's a lie. So what am I going to do to change that way of thinking? So those are the kind of things that I had to do in my own life in order to make a difference and start making some healthy changes in my life. And the more we do them, the more it becomes easier and easier. I'm not saying that it's going to be that easy. You know, we're going to have our moments when we fall and we make mistakes, but don't beat yourself up. Just get back up and do what you know you need to do now to make those changes. So I just wanted to share with you about that. And you know, my hope and prayer is that you can make those changes. And if there's anybody out there that, wants to make those changes, go see a pastor at a church in your neighborhood. Or try to go to some mental health center in your neighborhood or whatever and talk to somebody. Go to an AA meeting or find a recovery, celebrate recovery group or something in a church or whatever it is that you struggle with. Pray about it and ask God for direction, and He'll find something for you. He'll find a way for you to get help. If it's money, There's things that you can do with a little bit of help, with a mentor, somebody that's been through it before. Or somebody who loves the Lord and they don't mind walking with you. I had lots of mentors growing up. I used to sit with the old guys at church. Now I'm one of the old guys and I talk to the younger guys. There's always something we can do, people, if we really want to do it and we really want to make those changes. It's a hard thing to do, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And sometimes even now in my life, I have to stop and say, okay, my life's become a little bit unmanageable. What are some changes I need to make? And I do whatever I can. I go talk to somebody or I go for counseling. I go for counseling too, even now. Because every now and then I need a tune up to come down and be, even keeled. Sometimes I'm all over the place. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong. That takes courage to reach out and ask for help. That's not a sign of weakness like some people say. Man, you got to be strong to do that. To ask for help, because it's not an easy thing to do. And you don't need to suffer in silence, like I've said before. Sorry, folks. Yeah, so my prayer is that you'll do that. And you'll start making some changes in your life. And if there's anything I can do, just send me a little message or something and I'll correspond with you and we'll find a way where we can talk in private somehow. And I'll do whatever I can to help you or find you help or whatever it is that you're struggling with. So, I wish you all the best. And make those choices and make those changes in your life that's going to make a better 2025. I believe in you. You can do it. I know you can. I did it and I'm still doing it. But like I said earlier, it's nothing to be ashamed of. I find it exciting learning more and more about myself. There's always room for improvement. Boy, it's always room for improvement, people, but if you have that willingness to make those changes. So I believe in you. Like I said before, I wish you all the best. And in this journey, I hope you feel God's presence walking beside you when you want to make those changes. Just reach out to Him and ask Him for help. And ask, your friends, your family for help if you need it. Or your pastor or somebody in your church or your neighbor, whoever it is that you feel that you can trust. Just reach out to them. So I wish you all the best in the coming new year. God bless you.